morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, Ray Catania. Hi, Ray. How are you?
Kathy, I'm very well. Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to get to know you and to know more about what you do because it sounds so, it's aligned with what I do. And it also sounds like it's the missing piece to what people need, where they can really get to the heart of who they are and why they're here, what their gifts are. So Ray, I know that you started your journey by sharing about your near-death experience. So I wondered if you would be willing to start there and tell us a little bit about that experience so that people could understand where your superpowers came from.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I would say though that there was a time before the NDE. I'll get to that in just one second. But there were things in my childhood that I noticed as a result of kind of an unhappy childhood where I was isolated often, and I kind of broke through that veil. But what I chose to do, instead of acknowledging what I was seeing, hearing, and I'm saying seeing and hearing, you understand that it's not
Yes.
really seeing and hearing.
Yes.
It's third eye. Okay. But I kind of suppressed it. I came from a Christian home, and that was not going to be accepted by any means. And things were chaotic enough without me bringing anything like that to the table, right? So I kind of just put that away for many years. And at about the age of 20, that was my near-death experience. There was a fire in my home, and what had happened was it was caused by the stove, and the stove was leaking gas all night long. And at that time, I was still living home with my parents, and my bedroom was right above the stove, the next room up. So that gas was rising, and I was breathing it. We don't know how many hours. So the fire actually went out very quickly. The way I understand, my father put it out in a couple of seconds. The fire department shows up. Everybody forgets I'm asleep upstairs. So I'm in bed, and I hear the commotion. So I'm trying to get out of bed, but I'm pretty much paralyzed. Almost most parts of my body I can't feel, and I can't move, except I had my right arm, and I would use it to pull myself to the edge of the bed. And each time I would move a little bit over, I would pass out again. And I knew that if I didn't get to the edge of the bed, I was dead. No one was coming. So eventually I did. I fell out of the bed. And the second I hit the ground, it must have made a big thump. And that's how everybody knew I was upstairs. But by that time, I was dead. And what I saw next was I was over my body. It's amazing how all these stories are so similar. I was floating above myself, and I was watching as my father runs in, and he's holding me, and he's screaming for the paramedics to come up. And he was distraught. He was just so distraught. And we hadn't had a great relationship. So, seeing that kind of touched me. But I was very involved in what was happening, aside from being above myself. The how do you explain the light? My God, there's just no words for it. I guess it appears like a spotlight is only on you, and it's a cone-shaped light. And I'm sure many people watching have experienced it also. And it's very euphoric. As you go into it, you feel better and better and more euphoria. It's just amazing. It's the love and the euphoria, and there's no pain. And at the end of the light was a being who told me it was safe for me to enter the light. And I did partially, but I kept looking back at my father, and I kept noticing his crying and his screaming for the paramedics. And I said to the being, I said, I don't think I can leave him right now. And in that moment, I made a choice, at least I think it was my choice, to return. And I did. And when I woke up and came to, I was in the living room. I was no longer in the bedroom. I was in the living room, and paramedics were working on me and doing all kinds of stuff. And I woke up and I was like, "Get off me! I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't even know what's going on. Did anybody see the light? Did you hear the voice?" And then I just kind of shut up, because if I would have continued with that, I was going to a different hospital. I think pretty much. So, they started looking at me a little weird. But so I did go to the hospital. I later found out that I had died several more times, but that was the only one I actually remember. And coming back, you know, I want to point this out, because sometimes we get accused of romanticizing death and how great it is. And, it is. I mean, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I hated coming back. As soon as I came back into my body, it was like a bomb went off. I felt all the pain of being human again. Every little ache and pain was magnified, because it was gone. There was no body to experience pain with. And so, but we're here to fulfill our soul contracts, our responsibilities. So, anybody who's, thinking about taking their life or putting themselves in jeopardy to experience this should never, ever, ever think about doing anything like that, because not everybody gets to come back and gets a second round and tell everybody how great it is. So, I want to say that. I want to preface that. But it was the greatest day of my life, I will say, without a doubt. I lost your audio.
Thank you. Yeah, I was keeping quiet so I could tag people. So Ray, what you're talking about is a second chance, and I think this is applicable to everyone right now, with the times that are changing so much, that there's almost this feeling of new beginnings that that have happened since COVID, since the lockdown, that there's this opportunity to really be fearless and brave, and share your gifts to the world. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think that's in a sense, that's wonderful that we have this sort of reawakening, where we were faced with our mortality, not necessarily the same way as but to a degree, we were all very susceptible to death of that particular disease. And I think that a lot of people woke up and said, that's what the book is about. You're still alive and now act like it is. Live every day as though it's the last one, because one day you're going to be right. So take every day. And everybody that in my life, I tell them I love them every day, because I really don't know if this is my last one.
Right. Well, I think there's a different expression of yourself that's fearless after you have this experience, and your senses, as you mentioned, that even in childhood you realized that you knew, so you saw, sense, knew. You had more than five senses, most likely. And that this maybe amplified it or made you more courageous to play around with it, so that you could be in service. Because I think once you see any connection to the big picture of why we're really here and what we're really doing here, and that it's really an opportunity for consciousness to expand and grow and learn from us, it takes all the fear out of doing stuff, of being seen. Almost every person that I've met over the 6 years of being a volunteer for IANDS, each one of them are just magnificent, courageous beings that they like, for instance, Ingrid Honkala died of drowning, and she's a marine biologist, a very famous one.
Yes.
And so she didn't let that experience, where other people would go, no, I'm never getting in the water again. Instead, it created this curiosity and this yearning to master it. A lot of also people that are near-death experiencers that I've met have really excelled in almost everything they've done. They don't do things halfway. They're not the people that you meet at Christmas parties that are still talking about writing the book or doing a project. They've done it and they're on to the next one. They're doers. Have you noticed that too?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But with myself, what I chose to do is I rebelled against my religion as a young person, and it was easier for me at that time. Remember, I'm only 20 years old, but it was easier for me to not address it and allow it to be something that, because again, I spoke up about it, and when I did, I got the same thing as I got when I was a child, and I said I could see dead people, right? So I'm going to hell, blasphemy, blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
So I boxed it up again and I put it away, and I said, well, the white light was probably the sun coming in the window, and I was hallucinating because I was inhaling gas, and I put it away, and I put it away for 20 years. But the 2 years that followed, I think I got my own apartment at about 22 or so, 21, 22. And I remember telling my friend on the phone, I said, my apartment is haunted. And they would not let me sleep. Okay. And it was everything that you could possibly imagine. They can mess with electricity, right? So that's a lot of things in your home, right?
Yep.
So I was being called, but I didn't know that then. I just thought my house was haunted. So I moved to another house. And guess what? That one okay. So it's not the house, it's Ray. They're coming wherever I go. So I need to start accepting this as my new reality. But to turn it off during that period of my life, because I'm young and I don't fear death, and I work around chaos, I'm pretty much working for criminals at this time in my life, and I didn't care if I died. So that was my life. So I turned to drugs and alcohol, and I had a long stint with drugs and alcohol until eventually sobriety. And that was the beginning of the new future. Coming out of rehab, I had just had 2 children, very young, 1 and 2 years old, and I said, I'm responsible for these tiny humans, and I'm changing everything from this day forward. And that's exactly what I did. And then I started to change my mindset, where I went into like what you're talking about, where you're fearless, but you're using it in business for good, and you're using it for your family for good.
Right.
I did that for a long time. Didn't tell anybody my little secrets just yet. That came later when I started, after I was divorced, I started dating again, and the new, my now wife, was much more spiritual than I, pointed me in a direction when I started to reveal some of the things to her.
Yeah, I understand that. It's safe to come out and play now, but
Yeah.
before it wasn't. Well, Lizzie, my friend Lizzie said, I just want you to know, she said, yes, same happened to me. My mom put me in a convent because of it. So when she started seeing people in her field and was telling people, so it wasn't safe. It's this is what she said next. So it's great. So glad I'm listening to you. First time I'm listening to your
My
sharing.
first
Thank you,
mentor
Lizzie.
was accused, not I guess accused of being schizophrenic, and was put in a psych hospital for years by her parents.
Yeah. Well, that's what I knew. I'd asked my siblings, did you hear that? Did you see that? It was like, I'm not telling anyone because no one else saw it. But what was cool about it is the information, the field provided information that and I had other guides and stuff that provided information that helped me make better decisions than I would have than what was apparent. The game became different, a different game to play. That's all I can say. So
I probably cheated death more times than anybody I know, because I listened to them when I was in a terrible situation. In the first book, I talk about, I think it's the first book. I'm in a shootout in a bar,
Oh my
and they
God.
told me how to get out of the bar. Literally said side door, side door, side door. And then, but I knew the side door wasn't the end because you can't get all the way out and you have to go down another hallway, but yet it was
Uh-huh.
side door, side door. So I just went with it. And then I saw the other door and I eventually got outside and escaped. And that's one of many times they saved my life. So as this is happening, I'm starting to accept this as my reality. Still not ready to tell anybody, but I'm
Yeah.
accepting it as my reality. And when I'm at a stop sign and they say, don't go yet because another car is going to blow it on the other side, they're always right. And I always listen.
Yep. And I'm so grateful. I mean, it's they call that what sixth sense or whatever, but it really is that your life path, your soul mission is so much greater and than and that they can't really, they want to make sure you get to fulfill it, right? I mean, that you could have just sort of snapped back out of it, and you might not have been. Some people get multiple near-death experience opportunities, but that's kind of a painful way to learn.
Oh gosh.
So, so yeah, no, it's something. So I'm going to show your website real quick so we can show your book. Is that okay?
Sure.
So we can, they'll understand what we're talking about. So this is your first book, The Atheist and the Afterlife. Do you want to just share a little bit about that?
Sure. So the first book will take you from the very beginning, childhood, and the stories that I just kind of said, and explain how I started to become a believer and how I came out of the closet, so to speak, as a psychic medium. I hate the word psychic. I think we're calling it intuitive now. There's no more psychic. Too much fraud with that word. But I had those abilities, and I finally, I'm in my 40s when I wrote that book, and decided that I had to write it. Actually, it wasn't my decision. It was my wife who, a funny story. When I met her, I found her on a dating site, and it was a long time before I dated afterwards. There was a long stretch of years where I didn't date. And I went on this site and I saw her. She was one of the examples that they try to lure the men in, right? So it worked. And I saw her and I said, that's my wife. And I paid the money and I sent one email. That's it, to her. And I told her, I said, if you don't answer, I'm off this site and I'm going back to not dating because you're the only reason I'm here. The only reason I joined, you are going to be my wife, and blah, 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 blah. And she thought it was hysterical. So she emailed me back and she says, you're funny. Who are you? And then we met, and from there, it just grew. And she's a doctor of psychology and neuropsychology. So we're dating. Okay. And as soon as we start dating, the floodgates of the other side open. And you'll understand why in a second. And I'm seeing this man over and over and over. And he keeps telling me this story. He keeps saying the same line. It's like an 8-second video loop. And he says it repeatedly. I have no idea who this man is. And so basically, I can't say the sentence. It's got a couple 4-letter words in it. But
Okay.
You can help her. I can't. That's how it ends. So there's something I have to do. I just don't know what it is, and I don't know where I'm going to take it. So that started on a Friday, and by Sunday, I couldn't function. I couldn't drive. I remember being at CVS, and I was trying to pay for something with my credit card, and the lady says, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not. And I went back to my car, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna tell my girlfriend and that I just started dating, that I see dead people, and she's gonna either run for the hills, and I'm never gonna see her again. It's gonna be the shittiest relationship of my life, or because she's a doctor, she'll have me put away as a schizophrenic.
Oh no!
I'll get the help I need. Really, that's the way I was looking at it. I'll get the help I need because I thought I was crazy. And when I told her, she said, "That's probably my dad." What? I said, no. I saw the picture of your dad on the mantle. Looks nothing like him. She said, he only looked like that because he lost 40 pounds and he shaved. Because this guy had a big beard, mustache, husky. And he kept telling me I had to save some. And So she pulled up a photo, and it was the guy I saw.
Oh my God.
And
Wow, that's a great.
done.
Yeah, isn't that cool? That I love validation. I love it. It doesn't
Absolutely.
happen very often, but
So
that's
so from there, she was open to it, and she said, maybe you are a medium. You should explore this. And she started bringing me to, because she had seen mediums to visit her father, and her father had come through. So she pointed me in the direction of my first mentor, who led to second, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the story of that book, how I
wonderful.
be who and what I am.
And this book, I just love the title. You're still alive now. Act like it. And it's empower, elevate, and enlighten your consciousness. Yay!
So this is everything I learned thereafter. Once I found out I had these abilities, there's a thing about me. I'm a skeptic. I am a huge skeptic. If I can't understand something scientifically, I'll explain it like this. There's 3 rules before anything goes in my book or I talk about it. One is I have to know it exists. Obviously, someone has to tell me. Like mediumship, I didn't know what I was seeing, so it was defined. Secondly, I have to be able to recreate it. So I have to be able to evoke it, make it happen. Then I know it's something that I can make happen. And lastly, I have to understand a scientific theory that supports it for me to believe. Okay. And so all those 3 aspects went into everything in that book. And there are different techniques of the law of attraction. And then I explain in physics how that works specifically. And I don't just tell you what to do. I tell you why you're doing it and why the universe is working with you to give you the things that you're looking for.
Well,
So that's the basis.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a good book for anyone. It's kind of a bridge from the supernatural, well, from regular everyday life and wanting to create things in the material world to knowing that you have the power to create in the material world and ways to do it. So on your website, your other website, your coaching website, let's pull that up now. There's, I'm going to go all the way to well, actually, I'll let everyone see it first before okay, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's a little bit of scrolling here.
Telling me I need to put all these websites into one. So it's all going to be raycatania.com eventually.
Yeah.
That one will lead you to the others.
Okay. So now we're at Limitless Coaching, which is such a perfect name for this, because what you're doing is you're helping people connect with really their highest knowing rather than the superficial programmed knowing that we all have had the benefit. Our parents thought that was the way to keep us safe, but it's empower, elevate, enlighten, and experience consciousness. So here's the site. So what I wanted to put here is about these laws. Would you be so kind? So on this page, which is limitlesscoachingnow.com, and I'll put that in the comments, could you talk about these 4 laws and share a little bit about it? The first one's the law of vibration. Second one's the law of attraction, which you just mentioned. The third one's the law of action. And the fourth one is the law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Do you share anything about those?
Absolutely. I'm even going to put it. I'm going to package it together for you and give you an overview. What we learned from the law of attraction is that we are, and every religion told us this, we are a part of God and God is a part of us, right? Every single religion. That's the one thing they all got right, because we're all connected to the universal collective consciousness, which is an entity of energy where we are all part of it. If we're all part of it, we're all one. Okay. Now, the law of attraction allows us to, I use the word ask, but it's not really ask. Say what it is that you want. And when we speak to the universe does not speak English, French, or Spanish, or anything else. It speaks vibration. So in order to turn your thoughts, which are things, to vibration, you must visualize them, you must see them, and you must send that out. And the law of vibration, the law of attraction will not work without the law of vibration. That's how we're communicating. So what we put out, we get back. It's exactly how karma works. What we put out, we get back. Here's how it works. One very, very important point. You never can say what you don't want, because remember, it doesn't speak English. So if you say, I don't want to be in debt, I don't want to be in debt, I don't want to be in debt, guess what's coming to you? Debt. Because all the interpretation, all you saw in your mind was the visual of yourself, and debt, which probably looks like a pile of bills in your mailbox, right? So how should you have said it? I want an abundance of money. I need an abundance of money. I shall have an abundance of money. Now the visual is the I and the abundance, however you visualize that. Maybe it's a big pile of cash. Maybe it's a bunch of zeros in your bank account. But the visual turns into the vibration. The energy, and all energy is has a separate frequency. Tesla told us the secrets to the universe. He told us this in 1900. No, was anybody listening? I don't know why. Energy, frequency, and vibration. It's that simple. So when you ask for something, you must remember to put it in a positive tense. And what I teach when I coach is, when we think of a certain way, we wind up speaking that way. And this is important too. This will address some of the other laws. When you say something like, I have to drive my kids to school. No. You get to drive your kids to school. You are blessed with children. Many are not. You get to drive them. You get to raise them. You don't have to do anything. I have to go to work. No, you don't. You have a job. Be thankful. Go to your job and make money. Do what it is you love. If that's not what you love, then do something else. But you have to look at it in the positive. If you start looking at everything as a negative and that's what you put out, guess what? That's what you're getting back. So you have to change the way you speak. You have to change the way you think. And when you change the way you think, you will change the way you speak, and you will change your reality. So to summarize, I mean, what I do in my coaching is I try to get people to understand that the way they say things is the way they were taught, just like you mentioned, right? Our parents taught us this is the way. They said things, we heard them, they went into our subconscious mind, we absorbed them, because from birth to about 7 years old, we're in what we call a theta state. Your brain is always in a theta state. That's the theta brainwave. It's one above sleeping, just one above sleeping and dreaming. So it's almost like a hypnotic type state. And when you're in that state, you're very susceptible to everything you hear, and you store it, and it becomes real. You don't know what's real and what's not. You're too young. You just absorb it and you accept it as fact, especially if it comes with an emotion. Now, this is where we get our self-limiting beliefs. And I'll tell you a little story about that. Recently, a couple of years ago, I climbed to the top of Machu Picchu because I was being given my healing rights by the indigenous tribe, the Queros, in Peru. And I was very excited to receive this. I had been working with a shaman for a very long time to earn it. And I climbed right up the mountain. And you don't, I think it's, you don't climb all the way up. They drive you, considerably, but then you have to climb the rest. And listen, it's treacherous. You can fall off, but it's the real deal. But I didn't even think about it. I just went straight up and came down like it was nothing. But when I was 6, 7 years old, my parents had a bunch of people over, and the topic of conversation was phobias. And when it got to my mom, she said, I'm deathly afraid of heights. So I went through life saying, I'm deathly afraid of heights. I don't even know what that means yet. But I made that my reality because I heard it. If it's no good for my mom, it's no good for me. I'm going to accept that as fact. That's my reality. 40 something years later, I climbed to the top of Machu Picchu like it's nothing. And one false step and I could have fell over the mountain. Didn't even think about it once. I'm not afraid of heights. That was my self-limiting belief. That assures me that I am not my ego. I'm not my egoic mind that extracts these thoughts from the subconscious and tells me who and what I am. I'm not my ego, and neither are you. That is a construct of other people. And when you learn how to get rid of that and put that ego in its place, because it is a separate entity than you are, you get to tune into your awareness, which is your highest level of consciousness, connected directly to your higher self and God, or the UCC, or the universe. Pick your term. That is where you want to get your information from. And when you get rid of the ego, which is all about materialism, not just, materialism meaning the world of matter, and you focus on the world of energy, which is coming from above through your awareness, your life is going to change in every way. I can go on and on for about an hour.
Well, what I love about this too is that you're explaining ways that people can have the spiritual awakenings that you've had without having to have these major disorienting experiences, because they're expansive experiences. It's from seeing each one of the triggers or the remembrances of trauma as a gift and as an indicator that there's something more to clean up, rather than stop story, living in the story. There's so many people that their story, they wear it on their sleeve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
It is good. It is good to get it out, whatever it is. You kind of got to own your stuff in order to get yourself to the next level. So you have to admit your faults, but once it's out, you let that go and do not allow that's part of your growth. Again, it's the way we look at everything, right? One of my favorite quotes, nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
Exactly.
Hamlet, right? Beautiful quote. Everything you look at, you have the choice. Is that good or is that bad? Is it a good thing I was in the shootout or a bad thing? It was a great thing because I learned that there's someone looking out for me or something that's going to help me, and I need to listen to the voice.
Right.
So sure, I could look at it like, oh, I was, a victim. I was not a victim. I learned more on that day than I would have ever learned in my entire life. That's another one of my top 10 days. You got to stop looking at this stuff as being bad. You choose what's bad. You choose what's good.
Well, the other thing is that you become aware of your values, and you can see your values are really high in service to other. It isn't just about yourself. It's about the give back and being present as a portal, I would say, to the divine, and prying those doors open for people, because I imagine most of your clients are feeling stuck in some way, and then they read your book and they go, wow, this guy's seen it all. If he can do it, I can do it. Right? Is that how it happens?
I say that about 100 times. I am not special. I am not that bright. It took me 8 years to get through college. Okay, so don't look at me and think I'm anything fancy or special. I am not. I am a regular person. So if I can do any of these things, so can you. Trust me.
Right. So this show is, in many cases, is a resource for servant leaders. So there's conscious business owners that put all of their energy into the employees and into their customers, and they don't really have time to search out resources like you for their own well-being and support. And so that's why I was so excited when I saw your site and I saw what you do. And the books are just, I love the second book's title. It's like, get over yourself and go use your superpowers. But I can see that so many people are being triggered or being awakened. I guess it's not really triggered. They're the energies that we're going through for anyone who's starting to become sensitive or is already a highly sensitive being is maybe confusing. And having somebody like Ray help you through that so that you can be highly functional in this world as well as being expanded in your viewpoint is really what hopefully is happening in our society now, where we really can't tell what's the truth. We've got these inverted matrix and you can't tell because there's some falsehood trapped in with the truth on almost all the media and a lot of what's available to us in movies. There's truth in there, but you got to sort of dig for it. And then you question yourself the whole time. All of this is about coming back to you. You help people. I can really feel your gift is to help people access their gift and know it, experience it deeply. Is that correct?
Yes. If you're experiencing things and don't wait 40 years like I did to figure them out and find a mentor, move on it quickly, whether it be me or anybody, simply because you're not crazy. Your consciousness has been awakened for whatever reason, something has transpired, or maybe you were always awakened and you didn't know. But whatever the case may be, act on it quickly. Because if you don't, it can actually drive you crazy because it can be very troublesome. Like, don't wind up like me at the CVS and I couldn't pay the lady and I didn't even know what I was buying. Don't let it get to that point. Address it, and because it's beautiful. We should be taught this at birth. This should be part of school. In the early, I think it was the 1500s when the first medical texts were written. There were 6 senses in that book. There wasn't 5. There were 6. And number 6 was a little too close to a soul or a spirit, and the church was like, "Oh no, that's ours." And anybody who went against that, got severely punished. So they let that one go. And they stayed with the 5 senses. But consciousness was considered one of our senses if you go back to the 1500s in the early medical journals. So it's real. It's real.
Well, and you get to experience it a lot in poetry, or if you're with the IANDS group and you are around Reverend Peter Panagore and some of these people that are so proficient at articulating that other expansive resource that we all have, that is pure divine love, that allows you to figure it out rather than create a binary judgment about it. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that's what you're doing with people. You're helping them release the judgment of their thoughts and their actions and release that. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, part of the healing process is, like we said, allowing yourself, forgiving yourself for the things that you've done wrong. In fact, when and if anybody has gone through the 12-step program, I believe it's the 8th step, if memory serves, that you have to go back and apologize to every single person that you ever hurt. Now, why do they make you do that? Even if the person hurt you tremendously more than you hurt them, you still have to do that. The reason is because you have to accept responsibility for who and what you are to make yourself whole. If you're not a whole being, you will never be enlightened. You cannot be a whole being experiencing half of life. So you have to have all these emotions on the scale, and you have to have these experiences in order to fulfill your own enlightenment. The Buddha left the kingdom to induce his own self-suffering for many, many, many years because he had a life of leisure. And he knew that's only living half of a life. He had to experience the horrific side of life in order to become enlightened. And Eckhart Tolle is the same thing. He was suicidal. He was sitting on a park bench. I hate myself. I'm going to kill myself. Then he became enlightened. So it's it's not the terrible things, but it's having all the things, experiencing all these different things and accepting them as part of you, the good and the bad, and putting it together and making yourself whole is the first step to becoming awakened or enlightened.
So the opportunity is to see the bigger picture and to play in it fearlessly, and to also realize that you are making a impact just by you changing your frequency. I mean, they talk about David Hawkins. Dr. Hawkins said that on the scale of consciousness, that if you had just a small group of people that were vibrating at 1,000, or I guess it's even lower than that, 800 or 700 and above, that it would impact, each person would impact 100,000 people. Right. And so we're at that point now where many people can achieve that frequency and maintain it for a long time. I think before you felt, or I saw that people were mostly doing it, in their morning meditation or in prayer, or whenever they had their time, their alone time, their quiet time. But now you're finding people engaging in the world while they're still in that vibration. That's what you're doing. That's what you're talking about.
Because when they leave the house and they go to their office, they allow themselves to be susceptible to the boss's behavior or their colleagues that are mean or whatever it is. And they allow them to be affected by that instead of them affecting them. Right. And the way you affect them is by not allowing them to bring your vibration down in any way. You just let it bounce off you. You shield yourself. It's part of one of the things that we teach. And when you're shielded and nothing's going to penetrate, and yet you're giving off this loving energy, what happens? They change. You stay the same. You're the constant. You're the love. They change. And you're like, wow, this person is nice to me now. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah. The other part of this is not only do you do that, but you can also talk to their soul. So you don't have to confront this reality. You can actually plant a seed of love and connection with their from soul to soul. And that definitely affects this reality. It's quite amazing. I want to ask a little more about your Peruvian adventure, because I have a dear friend and past client, Daniel Gutierrez, who has a retreat center in Peru and takes people to Machu Picchu. And what do you think about the prophecies that the Peruvians have, the eagle and the condor prophecy, and then the prophecies of these times that Christianity calls the end times? I mean, we're definitely in a cycle, a huge cycle of 26,000 years. What do you feel is happening?
So I would say what I feel is happening is that we're getting to a tipping point where the majority of folks are starting to accept some of these other beliefs that others have that are of a higher frequency. And it's amazing when we look backwards, we see that there were groups of people like the indigenous culture in Peru who accepted these things long before we did, and we think we evolved, right? And now we're trying to evolve to get back to what they already had and what they believed in. So you can see that, I think, and I'm hoping that this world that we live in is starting to have that tipping point. Once you get to a certain degree where you can affect, like you said, one person can affect 10 people, and you start getting to the point where it will become the norm, it will become what the regular way of life. And that is going to be the most beautiful thing in the world, because what we have to remember is that we're all a part of God. We're all a part of the universe. We're all a part of that entity, the universal collective. Call it what you will. So hurting your fellow man or woman is hurting yourself, because you're all one. So that has got to be the most important thing to remember every time you step outside your door. You harm somebody, you're harming yourself, because you're part of that person, and you cannot separate yourself.
Yes.
So you have to remember that when you're working and when you're playing and when you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, keep in mind that if you're not doing something good for somebody, you're hurting yourself.
Right. That's perfect. That's perfect. I really feel that we've been in the dark ages and that we're going back to the Renaissance. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Law of One books that were channeled back in the 80s in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky, of all places, or Louisville, Kentucky. There were a group of people that brought through a series of 5 books called the Law of One, and it was an entity called Ra, who was the Egyptian king Ra, but he has a planetary consciousness of 7th dimensional planet, and he, in that book, it said the last 26,000 years there were only a small amount of beings that could have ascended, and they were in Peru. But they chose to stay so that they could help all of us ascend now.
That's amazing.
So yes, so I think it's remarkable that that's where you ended up having.
I'm not the only one. So many people go to Peru because we're drawn to it, and we don't know why. Right. There's something to it. There's something there.
Yeah, well, there's in Egypt and all of this, that there's a consciousness that is bigger than we know, that that wants to be revealed. And that's what's so beautiful about this time right now, is that there's so many people doing their best to process their trauma, their childhood trauma, like what you were talking about, that 0 to 7 years where we adopted things that don't serve us now. Or what they're finding also is that the imprints in your DNA of your ancestors who were chased by saber-toothed tigers and all sorts of stuff, that's still in there too, that needs to be released. Because if we're going to be telepathic beings, we can't have all that stuff going on in our minds. We have to be able to speak from here. So this is just a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much, Ray. So I do want to segue to talk a little bit about the way that I met you was because you're going to be a speaker at the IANDS conference coming up at the end of August and the first part of September near Washington, D.C. And I was going to show the conference website, if that's okay. So you can talk a little bit about what your offering is for there. Okay.
First, let me praise IANDS, because they are such an incredible, loving, professional organization. I love them, and everybody there. It's just so beautiful to see a group like this come together. It's amazing, and they are attracting more of the same beings. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I go right ahead. What I wanted people to know is the website is conference.iands.org, And I've been a volunteer for 6 years, and I love interviewing all these amazing people like Ray. And I don't know that I would have gotten to meet him. Sorry about that. That flipped it out. I don't know that I would have gotten to meet you if it wasn't for IANDS. But what the opportunity there is to help people that have had experiences that didn't have the confidence or the words or the support system to share their journey with anyone, be with like-minded people, and be fortified and enriched by the language and the words of the metaphysical experiences, so that they could heal and embrace who they are fully. Because that's real, and that's what you're doing in your work too, Ray, is helping people really be that beautiful being that they are, without all the fear of being seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For me, that was one of the hardest things for me to do, was to, come out of the world I was in and to say, this is the real me. This is what I can do. This is what I have seen. And, it's very, very hard. So I get it. But find a like-minded person, come to the conference, please. I'm not saying just to see me, just come to see anybody there, because everybody's going to be able to help you, no matter who you speak to.
What the reason I love going to it is, this is, as I said, my 6th year of being a volunteer. There is almost like a bubble around the event. There's at least 500 people, and then there's 200 or more people online watching it virtually. And the frequency of love for the people that are expressing, they remember the space of unexpressible love that they are, and they're doing their best in their human form to have the journey to express it. And it's palpable. I mean, I remember coming into it going, wow, this feels like home. And I had never been around that many people that were just going about their daily life being in that field. It's remarkable. And for those of you that are sensitive, it will feel just remarkable. You'll just know, and it'll enrich your capacity to feel. So Ray, will you talk a little bit about what you're going to talk about there?
Sure. Yeah. So my presentation is Sunday, which is the 3rd of September. I'm at 2:45 p.m. and I'm in the Washington Ballroom. And what I'm going to be going over is much of the contents of the second book, the things that led up to me having a major spiritual awakening. I tried to extract to the best of my ability, because I only had 60 minutes to condense this into. But you'll take away the 7 top highlights when you leave there that you can use to evoke your own spiritual awakening. It's exactly how I did it. I explain the story behind it. I explain a little bit of the science. I'm trying to explain as much as I can in a short period of time. But if you want the whole thing, it's all in the book. But I think that I'm calling it Be Limitless, 7 Steps to a Mindful Takeover, Evoke Your Own Spiritual Awakening. And I hope everybody comes to and takes something away from it, because, that's the only reason that we do this. So take advantage of it.
Yes. I hope I get to, as a volunteer, they have me working, so I never know when I get to. It's kind of crazy. I don't get to see that much of it. But I do get to see the recordings. So that helps a lot, because then if every dinner for like 6 months or whatever, 4 months, watch one of them. What's the opportunity is this beautiful opportunity to be around an organization that's been in existence. This is its 41st year. Raymond Moody was part of the original cast in it. And there's an opportunity to be with people that have had these experiences. And this year, a lot of the speakers have had spiritually transformative experiences, not just near-death experiences. So people like me that that saw something without having to have a car accident or have physical problems for the rest of my life. Somehow I was popped into it. But what you're going to see is that everyone has the capacity to have superpowers. And that's why I was so glad to meet you, Ray, because you're helping lots of people evoke and have fun with their superpowers, right?
I hope so. I really do. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here today, Kathy.
Yes, yes, yes. So I look forward to seeing you in person and getting to hug. And and thank you so much. What's the best way? I've been putting your website up, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knew how to find you.
RayCatania.com is definitely the best way. And if anybody contacts me through that website, I answer them all. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Sometimes I'm here all night and I will answer.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm so glad to meet you. And this is such an exciting time when people say, "What, I don't ever want to come back to Earth. What am I doing here?" And then you think of like, wow, you couldn't have been here in a more exciting time to see the changes and the upgrades and the opportunities to make a big difference. So let's see what, let's see, Arc 5. Oh, and Lizzie put, thank you both for a wonderful show. Very similar resonance to mine. And it's so beautiful to see us human beings embracing who we are. And Orc 5, thank you for being here too. She put, thank you, Ray, for a marvelous presentation. So yes, you'll see the we're all finding each other. And it's just going to make the field bigger and bigger and bigger. And I can't wait. I can't wait to play in it with all of you. So thank you, Ray. Thank you. Blessings. And thank you for your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So gotta sign off. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Please share this. You can sense this is a gift. Please